The stories began with whispers of ordinary rules, but quickly turned into unforgettable tales of defiance. People often thought of homeowners associations as groups meant to keep neighborhoods neat and tidy. Yet for some families, these associations became the source of endless frustration. One man discovered this the hard way. When his lawn was deemed the wrong shade of green, he received notice after notice, each demanding he replace the grass entirely. Instead of breaking under pressure, he came up with an idea so bold that even the neighbors couldn't stop talking. He removed his entire lawn and replaced it with a rock and cactus garden that needed no water, no mowing, and no maintenance. The HOA had no rule against it, and suddenly their demands crumbled in front of his creativity. What was meant to control him ended up giving him freedom. Another family found themselves in a similar battle, but theirs was even more colorful. A retired couple who simply wanted a quiet life received warning after warning for the color of their pool cover. To them, the shade seemed harmless, but the HOA insisted it was against community standards. Tired of the nitpicking, the couple went all in. They painted their entire backyard, fence in bright rainbow colors, and decorated their yard with cheerful lights. Soon, children stopped by to take pictures, and local media covered the story of the colorful couple. The HOA wanted control, but instead they found themselves overshadowed by a wave of community support. Not far away, a young family learned their basketball hoop was suddenly not allowed. The kids cried as workers removed it from the driveway. Their father decided that his children's joy was worth fighting for. Quietly, he built a full half-court in his backyard. When it was ready, he invited every neighborhood child to play. The laughter and joy could be heard throughout the block. The HOA, who thought they had removed fun, accidentally helped create something much bigger. Now, instead of one hoop, the entire street had a place where children gathered. But the most heartwarming story of this first part belonged to a single mother who only wanted a few plants on her porch. The HOA said no, claiming they weren't aesthetic. Hurt but determined, she turned her small space into a garden bursting with flowers. Each plant carried meaning, some reminding her of her late parents, others gifted by friends. The result was a breathtaking garden that neighbors came to admire. What began as warnings from the HOA turned into admiration from the community, leaving the association powerless. And yet these were only the beginning. As these homeowners discovered, when pushed too far, people find strength and creativity they didn't know they had. If these first stories seemed bold, the next ones went even further, where clever loopholes and surprising victories left the HOA struggling to hold on to its power. As the list moved forward, the stories grew more daring, each one showing how far people were willing to go when their patience ran thin. For one homeowner, the problem began with something as ordinary as a mailbox. The HOA claimed his mailbox design was not standard and demanded that he change it immediately. Instead of quietly complying, he came up with a plan that would both follow the rules and outsmart them completely. He rebuilt the mailbox to the exact legal size and shape, but turned it into a miniature free library. The little structure was filled with books for neighbors to borrow and exchange. Soon families visited the spot daily. Children came to pick out stories, and adults dropped off novels they had already read. The HOA had no choice but to let it stand, because technically it was a mailbox. What they tried to remove had instead turned into the most beloved spot in the neighborhood. In another town, a family faced a fine for keeping their boat parked in the driveway. The HOA argued that it violated community beauty standards, but the family quietly held a piece of information that no one expected. Their driveway connected directly to a private lake that they legally owned. When the HOA refused to back down, the family's lawyer presented the deed in front of the board, proving that not only did they own the boat, but the entire body of water it floated on. Embarrassed and powerless, the HOA had to withdraw the fine and even issued a statement acknowledging their mistake. For the family, it wasn't just about keeping a boat, it was about keeping their dignity. Another homeowner discovered the true spirit of the holidays when his Christmas decorations became a target. He had always enjoyed stringing up lights for his children, but the HOA insisted that the display was too distracting and not in line with neighborhood rules. Furious but smiling on the outside, he doubled his efforts the following year. He synchronized thousands of lights to holiday music and invited the whole neighborhood for a free light show. Cars lined up down the street, news cameras arrived, and the story spread far beyond the small community. The HOA once again tried to complain, but with so many people watching and enjoying the display, they could do nothing. Instead of scaring him into silence, their pushback made his home the most magical attraction of the season. These stories prove something powerful, that when ordinary people are pushed against a wall, they find ways to turn rules upside down. The mailbox became a library. The boat revealed hidden ownership, and the holiday lights turned into a community-wide festival. Each act of defiance carried not just cleverness, but emotion, a sense of standing up for one's values in the face of control. But as bold as these moments were, the greatest surprises were still to come. Ahead lay the top 3 stories, revenge so unexpected, so clever, and so unforgettable that even the strictest HOA boards were left speechless. These final tales were not just about small victories. They were about reclaiming freedom, proving that determination and creativity could turn the tables in ways no one thought possible. The final 3 stories stood out above the rest, each one a tale of determination that left the HOA stunned and powerless. These weren't just small victories. They were bold moves that turned the balance of power upside down. One homeowner lived on the edge of a quiet neighborhood, raising chickens as part of a small homestead. For him, the animals weren't just pets. They were part of his way of life. The HOA, however, claimed the chickens were not permitted, issuing fines and threats. Most people might have given up, but he wasn't willing to lose what mattered to him. After weeks of research, he discovered a legal loophole. Animals classified as emotional support were protected by law. He consulted a doctor, obtained the proper documents, and soon every chicken was officially recognized as an emotional support animal. The HOA, which had imagined a quick win, suddenly found itself unable to act. What was meant to be a defeat became a triumphant reminder that persistence pays off, even when the odds seem stacked against you. Another story unfolded when a couple filled their yard with flowers, only to be told the colors didn't fit the association's aesthetic. Heartbroken at first, they realized they weren't alone. Neighbors were just as tired of endless restrictions. Slowly, they began gathering support, inviting others to help create something bigger. Together, dozens of families turned the neighborhood into a massive community garden. The streets bloomed with bright flowers and greenery, far beyond anything the HOA could control. News outlets captured the transformation, praising the unity of the residents. In the end, the HOA's power seemed almost laughable, drowned out by the voices and actions of people who wanted beauty, not rules. What started as a fine for a few flowers ended as a movement that reshaped the community forever. But the most unforgettable story came from a ranch owner who faced endless battles with his HOA. It all began with a fence he built, sturdy, functional, and personal to him. The association called it too gaudy, demanding that he take it down. What followed was months of arguments, warnings, and fines. Instead of bending, he began looking into property records, determined to find a way to stand his ground. That's when he uncovered something remarkable. The HOA's only access road ran across land he could legally purchase. Without hesitation, he bought it. Overnight, the very people who had tried to control him found themselves needing his permission just to reach their own homes. He didn't shut the road immediately, he simply introduced a fee for its use, a reminder that their authority was not absolute. The community quickly realized who truly held the power. The man's revenge was not loud or aggressive, but precise, clever, and impossible to ignore. As these final stories showed, revenge doesn't always come in the form of anger. It often comes in the form of resilience, creativity, and patience. From chickens turned into emotional support animals, to a garden that united an entire neighborhood, to the rancher who bought the very road his opponents needed. Each tale carried the same message. When unfair power pushes too far, ordinary people can rise with extraordinary strength. The narrator's voice softened as the stories came to a close, leaving the audience with a final thought. Homeowner associations were meant to bring order, but sometimes they bring out the best in people instead. The courage to stand up, the wisdom to find a loophole, and the determination to protect what's theirs. These top 10 tales are proof that even in the face of endless rules, the human spirit finds a way to fight back. And with that, the stories ended. not just as entertainment but as inspiration. The audience was left with a question hanging in the air. If you were in their place, how far would you go to protect your home?